Tara was standing in the middle of my kitchen at 11:30 on a Thursday night, holding a jar of peanut butter like it had personally offended her. "I'm just saying," she said, turning it over to read the label. "If the ingredients are peanuts and salt, why does it taste like something they made in a laboratory?" "Because you bought the natural kind. I bought the healthy kind." "Same thing. You have to stir it." She stared at me. "Nobody told me about the stirring, Ani. It says it on the lid." "I don't read lids, Adam. I'm not a scientist." I took the jar from her, grabbed a butter knife from the drawer, and started working the oil back into the paste, while she leaned against the counter and watched me like I was performing surgery. The kitchen smelled like the soup we'd made an hour ago, the kind you throw together when the weather drops, and neither of you wants to go back outside. Carrots, broth, whatever vegetables are still okay. A can of white beans because I always have white beans. Tara had contributed by criticizing my knife technique for 12 straight minutes, and then eating 2 bowls. She had shown up at my door at 9 with a tote bag, a bottle of cheap wine, and the information that her heater had stopped working. Her apartment was 3 blocks over. The building super had told her he'd look at it tomorrow, which we both knew meant Friday at the earliest, possibly never. I told her to come in. She didn't need to ask twice. That was how things worked with us. We had been friends for 5 years, which I usually said out loud, like it was a normal fact about 2 normal people. But lately, when I said it, something small caught in my chest, like a thread snagged on a nail. I never pulled at it. I just kept walking and hoped it would work itself loose. Tara blew on her mug of tea and looked around my kitchen, like she was taking inventory. She did that sometimes. Noticed things. She had once pointed out that I rearranged my cabinet shelves every time I was stressed. And I had tried to argue with her, but she'd pulled out her phone and shown me 4 separate texts I had sent over 2 years that each said some version of, "I reorganized the kitchen today." She was annoyingly right about things like that. "You got a new plant," she said, nodding toward the windowsill. "Last week." "What kind?" "Pothos. The guy at the nursery said it was hard to kill." Tara tilted her head, studying it. "It already looks kind of sad." "It's adjusting." "To what?" "To living here." She smiled at that. Not a big smile, just the kind that meant she was filing the moment away somewhere. Tara had a whole filing system for things I said. I had stopped wondering what she did with them. We had met the way people meet when they're not trying to. A work thing, technically, though neither of us worked together. Her firm was doing the interior redesign of a building. My company was leasing space in. And there had been a coordination meeting that ran 2 hours long and accomplished very little. Afterward, most people scattered for the elevator. Tara went for the stairs because, as she explained later, she had been sitting for 2 hours, and her legs were starting to forget their purpose. I followed, because I had the same problem. She was 2 flights down when she said, without turning around, "You were also bored in there." I was not. "You doodled a boat on your legal pad for 45 minutes. It was a floor plan." She glanced back at me then. "It had a sail." I offered to buy her coffee to apologize for the boat. She said she wanted tea, not coffee, and that I should know the difference before I started making offers. We stayed in the cafe for 2 hours. I don't remember exactly when I stopped wanting to leave. After that, it was the kind of friendship that builds itself without either person noticing. Texts about small things, recommendations that turned into shared opinions, running into each other at the farmer's market and then just walking around it together because why not? Her calling me when her car made a weird sound. Me calling her when I needed a second opinion on something I'd already decided but wanted to say out loud. People assumed things. They always did. A bartender once gave us a single check and said, "You guys want dessert?" Like it was obvious we were together, and Tara had said, "Just the check, thanks." And when he walked away, she looked at me and said, "Why does everyone always?" And then stopped and looked back at her drink. I said, "I know," and that was the whole conversation. I stirred the peanut butter until it came together and handed it back to her. "Thank you," she said. She dipped a spoon directly into the jar without getting a plate or anything else. "This is why I keep you around. Peanut butter management. Peanut butter management and soup." She pointed the spoon at me. "And you know where the good flashlights are. That's an extremely low bar, probably. I have high standards in other areas." She moved to the couch in that way she had, like she wasn't relocating so much as expanding into the next space. She had been in my apartment enough times that she moved through it without asking where things were. She knew which light switch was the wrong one. She knew the second shelf in the bathroom cabinet had bandages if she needed them. She knew the couch cushion on the left was the comfortable one, so she always took it. I always let her. I sat on the right side, and we watched half a documentary about deep-sea fish that neither of us had deliberately chosen. At some point, Tara tucked her feet under her and leaned slightly in my direction. Not enough to be a thing, just enough that I was aware of the distance between us, in a way I couldn't fully ignore. She fell asleep 20 minutes into the fish documentary. She did this sometimes. She would say she was just resting her eyes, and then 15 minutes later she was actually gone, and I would sit there not moving, because the alternative was waking her up, and that seemed worse. Tonight she had her head at the corner of the couch back, arms folded across herself inside the oversized cardigan she'd had on when she knocked on my door. She had paint on her wrist. She always had paint on something. She worked in design, but she painted at home for no reasons she could fully explain. Once she said, "I think I need something that doesn't have a client," and I understood that immediately. I watched the fish documentary alone until it ended and started something else automatically. At some point I turned the volume down low and just sat there in the quiet while Tara slept 3 feet away from me, and my kitchen smelled like soup, and the plant on the windowsill looked slightly less sad in the dark. I had been on 3 dates in the past 4 months. Each one was with someone who was kind and interesting and had no apparent reason to not be worth seeing again. The first one liked hiking and had strong opinions about public libraries, which should have been charming. It was charming. I just drove home afterward and found myself wanting to text Tara about the date instead of the person I had been on it with. The second one, we saw a movie, and the whole time I was noting things I would have said to Tara about it, storing them up like I was collecting something to spend later. The third one was coffee. I cut it short because I had told myself it was because I was tired, but I had been home by 8, and I hadn't gone to sleep until midnight. I knew what the thread was, if I was being honest. I just didn't pull at it. Tara shifted and made a small sound, and I thought she was waking up, but she just turned slightly toward the cushion and stayed asleep. Her cardigan had slid off one shoulder. She had a scar near her collarbone from a bike accident she'd had at 12. She had shown it to me once, years ago, explaining the story of the hill and the pothole, and her complete refusal to admit it had hurt until her mom made her. I remembered almost everything she had ever told me. That was the problem. Not the knowing, the keeping. She woke up at 20 past midnight, sitting up straight with the slightly guilty look she always got after falling asleep somewhere that wasn't her bed. "I did it again," she said. "You did? How long?" "About 40 minutes. She rubbed her face with both hands. "You should have woken me up. I was watching deep-sea fish. Adam." She dropped her hands and looked at me. "You were sitting here in the dark watching fish while I slept on your couch. The fish were interesting. They were horrible. They had no eyes. That's what made them interesting." She looked at me for a moment with an expression I had seen before but never tried to name. Something between amused and something else. She shook her head slowly and reached for the mug of tea she'd left on the table, which was cold now, but she drank it anyway. I should call a rideshare, she said. She didn't move. The couch is fine. I have work tomorrow. So do I. I have a sweatshirt you can borrow and the spare blankets in the closet. You're very prepared for this. You've stayed over 4 times. She counted silently, then nodded. Fair. Write in the comments. Should I have told her to take the rideshare? Or was keeping her there the right call? She settled back against the cushion and turned to look at me. Not the casual look she used for most conversations. This one was the other kind. The one where she actually looked. Can I ask you something? Sure, and you'll answer honestly? I'll try. She set the mug down. Why are you still single? The question arrived clean and without decoration, and it hit somewhere specific. I laughed once because my body needed to do something, while my brain caught up. That's direct. It's almost 1 a.m. I'm too tired for indirect. Okay. I shifted on the cushion. I don't know, work is busy. Dating apps feel like a part-time job I never agreed to take. People are complicated. She was watching me with an expression that said she had heard those answers before, which she had. I had used them with her. I had used them with myself. Adam. What? Those aren't the real answers. The apartment was quiet in that specific late-night way, where you can hear the refrigerator hum, and the occasional sound from the street and your own breathing. The lamp in the corner was the only light on. Tara was looking at me, like she was waiting for something she had been waiting for a while. I had the answer already. I had had it for longer than I wanted to admit. It had been sitting inside every dinner I had cut short in my head before the check came. Every morning I had woken up after a second date and thought, why does this feel like going through the motions? Every time I had seen Tara's name on my phone and felt something loosen in my chest that I hadn't noticed was tight. I looked at the plant on the windowsill, then back at her. There's this thing that happens, I said, every time I go out with someone. It's not that anything is wrong with them. Most of the time, nothing is. It's just that the whole time, I'm aware that I'd rather be somewhere else, doing something quieter, with someone who already knows all the background. Tara didn't say anything, and I keep trying to figure out what that means. Whether it's just me being avoidant or scared of something serious or whatever. But then I think about the list of people I actually want to call when something good happens or something goes wrong. And it's a very short list. I stopped. It's basically you. She was still. You're the person I want to tell things to, I said. Good things, bad things, things that don't mean anything. I found a parking spot last week on the first try, and my first thought was to text you about it. That's not normal best friend logic. I don't think that's what I'm doing. The refrigerator hummed. A car passed outside. Tara looked down at her hands for a moment. When she looked back up, her expression had shifted into something that was harder to read and easier to feel. How long have you been holding that? A while. How long is a while? About a year. Maybe more. I stopped counting when counting felt stupid. She exhaled slowly, not a sigh, just air. Like she'd been holding something too. You could have said something. I know. A year, Adam. I know. I was scared of the version where I said it, and then you looked at me differently for the rest of our lives. She looked away toward the window, and I watched her face in profile while she figured out whatever she was figuring out. Her jaw worked slightly. Her fingers curled around the edge of the couch cushion. Can I tell you something? She said. Yeah. Last spring. When you helped me move the furniture in my new place. I remembered it. A Saturday in April. We'd rented a dolly from the hardware store and moved her couch 3 times because she couldn't decide if she liked it against the wall or angled toward the window. Her downstairs neighbor had knocked on the ceiling with something. We'd eaten pizza on the floor surrounded by boxes, and she had fallen asleep there too, because apparently that was her thing, and I had sat there, not wanting to leave until she woke up and looked around at the half-assembled room and said, "This is going to be good," like she was deciding it. "What about it?" I said. "When I woke up and you were still there." She paused. "You had brought me a blanket, from the box I said had bedding in it. You dug through the whole thing to find it. You were cold." "I know, that's the thing." She looked at me. "I woke up with a blanket I hadn't asked for, and you were sitting against the wall eating the last of the pizza. And you said, 'Sorry. I was hungry.' Like it was the most normal thing to still be there at 10 at night on a Saturday, and something happened in my chest that I did not know what to do with. I hadn't known that." "I didn't say anything," she said. "Because you didn't say anything, and because the alternative felt like handing you something that could break us, and I wasn't ready to do that." The apartment felt different now. Not wrong, just different. Like a room where someone had moved the furniture and you had to relearn where everything was. "So," I said. "So," she said. Neither of us spoke for a second. Then Tara looked at the window, then back at me, and something in her expression let go of whatever it had been holding. "You know what's embarrassing?" she said. "What?" I have rehearsed approximately 0 versions of this conversation. I have had a year to think about it, and I rehearsed nothing. That tracks. Honestly. I'm usually very prepared. "You didn't know the lid said to stir the peanut butter." She pointed at me. "That is a different category of prepared." I looked at her. She looked at me. The lamp in the corner was still on. The plant on the windowsill was still probably dying slightly. None of that felt like the important part. "I'm not going to make some big speech," I said. "I've already said the actual thing. I just want to know if it lands somewhere useful." Tara was quiet for a moment. Then she reached over and put her hand over mine on the arm of the couch. Not dramatic, not a movie gesture, just her hand on my hand, still and warm. "It lands," she said. I turned my hand over under hers. She let me. We sat like that for a minute, maybe 2. The street outside was quiet enough that I could hear the building settling into itself. Tara's thumb moved slowly across the back of my hand once, like she was checking that it was real. "This is strange," she said. "Which part?" "The part where we're the same people in the same apartment, but it's completely different now. Is that bad?" She looked at me for a long moment. "No," she said. "It's actually the opposite of bad, I'm just noting it. You always note things. I know. It's a whole system." She looked at our hands. "I'm noting this." I laughed, quiet, and she did too, and that was the part that loosened something in my chest. I had not realized was still braced, because it was still the same laugh. She still turned it sideways the same way. I had not broken the thing I was most scared of breaking. "Can I say one more thing?" I said. "Probably. I'm really glad your heater broke." Tara stared at me. Then she covered her face with her free hand, while her shoulders shook with something between disbelief and actual laughter. "Adam? Too soon? That is genuinely the worst thing you have ever said to me. I thought it was kind of good. It was bad. It was very bad." She dropped her hand. Her eyes were bright. "It worked, but it was bad." I had no defense for that, so I didn't offer one. I just held onto her hand and let the night be what it was. She did not call the rideshare. She stayed on the couch with the spare blanket from the closet and my old college sweatshirt that she pulled over her cardigan, and I stayed on my side until she fell asleep again. Because Tara could sleep anywhere and had 0 shame about it. In the morning, she made coffee while I was still in the shower, the kind she knew I liked, which was not complicated but was specific in a way that mattered. She had left a mug on the counter and was sitting at the kitchen table with her own cup and her phone when I came out. "Your plant looks better in the morning," she said without looking up. I looked at it. "It does, actually. Told you it was adjusting." I sat down across from her. She looked up from her phone and there was a second where we both acknowledged, without saying anything, That something had shifted and it was still okay. Better than okay. I have to be at a site walk at 8:30, she said. I have a 9 o'clock call. Okay. She wrapped both hands around her mug. So we have 40 minutes. What do you want to do with 40 minutes? She thought about it seriously, the way she thought about most things. I want to eat something, and I want you to tell me what that documentary was actually about after I fell asleep, because I feel like I missed the part where they explained why the fish have no eyes. It's because there's no light down there. Evolution. That's deeply sad. They don't know any different. Still. She looked at me over her mug. Tell me from the beginning. So I told her about the fish. She asked questions, in the way she always asked questions, which was, with complete sincerity and mild skepticism, and a tendency to circle back to something I'd said 3 sentences ago, because it was still bothering her. I made eggs. She buttered the toast. We argued about whether the fish were impressive or just tragic, and she took the position that they were both. And I was being reductive. And I said I wasn't being reductive. I was being efficient, and she said those were not the same thing, and I said they were adjacent, and she said adjacency wasn't sameness. Adam, which was an extremely you thing to say. I did not tell her it was the best morning I'd had in as long as I could remember. I didn't need to, she was already there. 3 weeks later, almost nothing was different. That was the part I hadn't expected. We still got food from the same Thai place we'd been ordering from for 3 years. She still stole bites off my plate before her own food arrived and acted surprised when I noticed. We still argued about directions, even when we had GPS, because she trusted her instincts over technology, and I trusted technology over her instincts. And we were both wrong, roughly the same percentage of the time. She still showed up at my door when things went sideways. I still called her when something happened that I needed to say out loud. The rhythm of it was the same, was to say, but now, walking back to my car after dinner one night, Tara slipped her hand into mine the way you do something you've done before. Easy and without asking, like muscle memory for something that hadn't happened yet enough times to actually be that, but already felt like it could be. I looked at our hands. She looked up at me. What? Nothing. I squeezed her hand, just not pretending anymore. She was quiet for a step or two. Then she bumped her shoulder into mine, lightly, the way she did when she didn't want to say the thing she was thinking, but wanted me to know she was thinking it. I had spent 5 years calling her my best friend, because it was the truest word I had. That was also safe. It wasn't wrong. It just wasn't the whole thing. The whole thing had been there every time she fell asleep on my couch, and I didn't want to move. Every parking spot I wanted to tell her about, every date I'd left early in my head before it was over. The whole thing had probably always been Tara. I was just finally walking next to it, without looking the other way.